In today's fast-paced world, it's easy for women, especially single mothers, to lose themselves in responsibility and routine. But emotional connection and self-worth are not luxuries, they are necessities for a full life. Take time to nurture your own heart. Even in small ways, allow yourself to be open to kindness, to friendship, to moments that remind you you're more than your role. Life isn't just about surviving, it's about feeling alive. Don't be afraid to let someone see you, appreciate you, and remind you that you are still deserving of love, tenderness, and emotional connection. The autumn evening draped the Justin household in elongated shadows as the waning sunlight seeped through the partially drawn curtains. Claire Justin lingered in the hallway, her hand poised on the brass doorknob of her son's room, caught in a moment of hesitation after a lengthy day. At the office, her thoughts tangled in spreadsheets and looming deadlines, the unusual sounds coming from inside her curiosity. She paused, her heart racing, not out of fear but from a deep-seated instinct that whatever awaited beyond the door would alter everything forever. Claire had always taken great pride in her connection with Paul. At 19, he had transformed from the bright-eyed boy she once walked to school with into a young man shrouded in a guarded demeanor, often retreating to the solitude of his room. Enveloped in layers of silence as a devoted mother, she poured her heart into making sure he felt cherished despite the void left by James, her ex-husband, who had left a decade ago, yet the connection between them had faded. In this evening, that void was unmistakable. With a steadying breath, Cla eased the door open with care. The room was softly illuminated, with the desk lamp in the corner providing the sole light source. Paul sat on his bed, his back curved, his body rigid with tension in his hands. He grasped his phone and his face turned a deep shade of crimson, betraying his undeniable embarrassment. He snapped his head up as the door creaked. His eyes were wide and filled with surprise. "Mother," he cried out, his voice trembling with a mix of remorse and fear. He hurriedly shoved the phone under a pillow, his awkward movements revealing his unease. Cla's initial impulse was to express regret and withdraw, yet an unseen force held her firmly in place. Maybe it was the way Paul averted his eyes, or the understanding that his shame went beyond that of a youth caught in a personal act. She grasped the situation without needing to glance at the phone's display. "I knocked," she replied gently, even though she hadn't. Her voice was calm and nurturing, reminiscent of the tone she adopted when Paul was a little boy. With a scraped knee, she entered the room, gently shutting the door behind her. Paul remained silent, with his shoulders drawn in and his gaze averted. He seemed to retreat into himself. The air was tinged with a subtle blend of laundry detergent and the unmistakable essence of adolescence. Cla surveyed her surroundings, noting the disarray of textbooks strewn about the bed left unmade and the desk overwhelmed with a chaotic mix of notes and empty energy drink cans. It captured a moment in her son's life, disordered, fragile, and in this instance strikingly laid bare. "Are you okay?" she inquired after a moment, her tone deliberately controlled. "I'm fine," he replied, his voice scarcely above a whisper. He adjusted his position on the bed, fingers intertwined firmly in his lap. Cla perched on the edge of the bed, keeping a measured distance. "Paul, there's no need for you to feel embarrassed. Whatever this is, I'm not here to judge you." Her words lingered in the air, thick with unexpressed understanding. She could feel the warmth of his embarrassment emanating from him. Yet she also perceived something more profound, a silent yearning for reassurance, for connection. Paul finally turned to her, his expression a blend of exasperation and openness. "You wouldn't understand," he said, his voice laced with resentment. "Go ahead, give it a shot," Claire said, her eyes unwavering. He paused, his hands fidgeting anxiously. "It's not. I was simply intrigued by it. It's not a big deal." Cla nodded slowly, allowing him the room to elaborate. When he failed to respond, she chose to redirect the attention. "Paul, you realize you can share anything with me, don't you? I've been your age once. I understand what it feels like to be confused or curious or lonely." The word hung in the air, resonating deeply with Both of them. Paul's eyes flickered. With recognition, and for the first time. His posture relaxed slightly. He began to speak but stopped, swallowing hard. I don't want you to see me as some sort of oddity. Claire felt a pang in her heart at his statement. You're not an outlier, Paul. You're just like everyone else. Humans are messy and complicated. That's part of growing up. He looked at her, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. It's just hard, he confessed, his voice trembling at times. I find myself questioning my identity and purpose. Cla gently placed her hand on his knee, offering solace. That's perfectly normal, she replied in a soothing tone. You don't have to have all the answers right now, but you don't have to figure it out alone either. For a moment they sat in silence, the tension in the room dissipating. Claire felt the weight of her son's struggles echoing her own journey, navigating a failed marriage, raising a child on her own, and confronting her own feelings of inadequacy. Years had passed with her prioritizing Paul, sidelining her own needs and desires. Now, as she sat with him, she questioned whether she had done him a disservice by concealing her vulnerabilities. Paul, she said softly, whatever you're feeling, it's perfectly fine. There's no need for shame, and you don't have to go through it alone. He gazed at her, his face reflecting a blend of relief and uncertainty. Thanks, Mom, he replied softly, his voice brimming with sincere appreciation. Claire nodded, her heart weighed down but filled with a flicker of hope. She rose gracefully, adjusting the fabric of her skirt. I'll give you some space, she said, moving toward the door. Just as her hand touched the doorknob, she hesitated, casting a glance back at him. Always keep in mind, Paul, that I'm by your side always. He nodded, a subtle smile playing at the edges of his mouth. I understand. Cla emerged into the hallway, gently shutting the door behind her. She leaned against it, her thoughts swirling. The encounter had awakened something inside her, a blend of nurturing instinct, compassion, and a disquieting awareness of her own solitude. She understood this was merely the start of a dialogue that must unfold. Yet for the moment she decided to proceed gradually, intent on closing the widening gap between them. The evening had deepened into darkness, the final glimmers of sunlight fading away. Claire lingered in the hallway, her hand resting on the doorframe, her heart burdened by the implications of what she had witnessed and its potential impact on their relationship. Taking a steadying breath, she turned and stepped away, leaving the shadows of Paul's room in her wake. Yet the questions persisted, hanging in the air like the resonance of a truth left unvoiced, yearning for resolution. The time following Cla's exchange with Paul was filled with unease, her thoughts cycling through the encounter repeatedly. The delicate bond they had formed filled her with a mix of comfort and apprehension. Despite her reassurances to him, a persistent worry lingered in her mind. Could she truly comprehend the weight of Paul's struggles? Claire drifted through the house, straightening already organized areas, seeking any diversion to quell her mounting anxiety. As the hour approached midnight, she settled in the softly lit living room, a cup of tea sitting untouched on the coffee table. She gazed out the window at the tranquil suburban street, her reflection barely discernible in the glass. This feeling was not new to her, adrift and isolated in a life that had once centered on motherhood. Paul had matured swiftly, and she had poured so much of herself into him that she scarcely recognized the woman she had been prior to his arrival. Her mind drifted involuntarily to James. He had departed when Paul was merely 9, and since that time she had taken on the responsibilities of both parents, putting her own needs aside. Yet now, as she confronted this sensitive issue with her son, she questioned whether her sacrifices had deprived Paul of the emotional support he truly required. The gentle sound of footsteps interrupted her thoughts. She glanced over to find him lingering in the doorway, his shoulders slightly hunched as if preparing for a possible rejection. He had slipped into a simple t-shirt and sweatpants. His hair was disheveled, a testament to a night of restless sleep, or perhaps none at all. Couldn't sleep, she inquired, her tone soft yet unwavering. He shook his head, moving deliberately toward the couch. I Suppose you couldn't either. Claire motioned for him to take a seat next to her. He obliged, maintaining a respectful distance yet near enough for her to sense the tension in his stance. For a brief moment silence enveloped them, broken only by the subtle hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Paul, she began gently, I've been reflecting on what you mentioned earlier about feeling lost, unsure of who you are or what your purpose is. He nodded, his eyes focused on the edge of the coffee table. It's not easy, she continued, selecting her words with care. Being your age comes with so many expectations, and at times it feels like you're navigating it all alone, without anyone to help you understand. He gazed up at her, his eyes seeking solace in hers. I just feel adrift, as if everyone else has everything sorted out but me. Claire extended her hand, resting it gently on his arm in a gesture of comfort. That's a misconception. Many individuals share your confusion. They simply excel at concealing it. Her words echoed in his mind as he reclined on the couch, letting out a heavy sigh. I don't know what I'm doing, Mom. Sometimes it feels like I'm just trapped. Claire felt a deep pang at his openness. She yearned to offer support and lighten the weight he bore, yet she found herself at a loss for how to do so. Her own past struggles with solitude and doubt had long been overshadowed by her obligations, but now they emerged, echoing the profound isolation those emotions could bring. She spoke after a brief silence, her voice quivering just a bit. I want to support you. I don't want you to feel isolated in this struggle. He gazed at her, a blend of hope and uncertainty in his eyes. What do you mean? Claire paused, her thoughts swirling as she sought the perfect words. I mean, there are times when uncertainty clouds our judgment, and having someone to guide us can make all the difference. Someone we can rely on. Paul's expression shifted, his brow knitting together in perplexity, similar to a counselor. She shook her head, though the idea had flitted through her thoughts. No, not quite. I mean someone who truly understands you, someone who truly grasps your struggles. The space felt increasingly confined, the atmosphere thickening as the weight of her words lingered in the air. Paul's face transformed, his bewilderment evolving into a deeper sense of uncertainty, revealing a more fragile side of him. Are you saying? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Claire nodded, her hand still resting on his arm. If you'll let me. His gaze sought hers, and for an instant she glimpsed the child he once was, the boy who turned to her for direction in a world that frequently seemed vast and daunting. I don't know, Mom, it feels strange. I understand, she confessed, her tone gentle yet unwavering. But often those who care for us deeply are the ones best equipped to support us. And I care for you, Paul, above all else. Her words appeared to shatter something within him, and he leaned in, hiding his face in his hands. I don't want to ruin everything, he murmured. His voice was muffled and raw. Cla placed a reassuring hand on his back, her touch both firm and gentle. You won't mess anything up, no matter what emotions you're experiencing or challenges you're encountering. We will navigate them side by side, one step at a time. The ensuing silence was thick with feeling, yet it remained comfortable. The silence enveloped them, creating a space for healing and the blossoming of understanding. At last Paul lifted his gaze, his eyes were filled with a narrative, resolute yet open. All right, he murmured softly, but can we proceed at a leisurely pace? I really don't want to ruin this. Claire beamed, a comforting glow filling her heart. Absolutely, Paul, take all the time you require. They lingered together a bit longer, the gravity of their discussion transforming into something more bearable. The connection between them, though challenged, seemed more resilient, now strengthened by their readiness to face the unsaid. As the initial light of dawn crept through the window, Claire experienced a flicker of tentative optimism. This was not the answer to all their difficulties, but rather a starting point, a move toward comprehension, toward unity, toward recovery. She stole a look at Paul, who had settled back against the couch. His eyes were shut, yet his face radiated tranquility in that moment. For the first time in ages, she sensed that they were genuinely united as a team, two flawed individuals traversing a complex world side by side. As the Morning light enveloped the room in a gentle embrace. Claire made a steadfast commitment to support her son in finding his path regardless of the time or challenges that lay ahead. The dawn arrived gradually, its glow seeping into the Justin home like a cautious visitor seeking entry. Cla shifted on the living room couch, her neck sore from the uncomfortable position she had dozed off in. Next to her, Paul remained asleep, his head resting against the cushions, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. For a moment Cla simply observed him, her heart a mix of heaviness and hope. The conversation from the previous night had opened a door between them, yet it also left her grappling with uncertainties she couldn't quite resolve. She had vowed to assist him to navigate the challenges he faced, but the burden of that commitment hung in the air, an unseen force pulling at her every thought. As Paul awoke, the sun had risen, completely flooding the room with a warm golden glow. He blinked away the remnants of sleep, rubbing his eyes before turning his gaze to Cla. In that brief moment, a flicker of vulnerability crossed his face, only to be swiftly masked by a more guarded demeanor. Morning, he mumbled, sitting up and stretching. Morning, Clara replied softly, offering him a small smile. How are you feeling? He shrugged, his gaze fixed on the coffee table. I'm not sure. It feels a bit strange. I suppose that's all right, she replied, her voice soft yet resolute. Patience is a virtue, he acknowledged her with a nod, yet the ensuing silence hung thick in the air, laden with unexpressed emotions. Claire felt the urge within him to elaborate, but she refrained from urging him further. Instead, she rose and stretched her jaw, complaining after a night spent on the couch. How about some breakfast? She suggested, attempting to bring a sense of normalcy to the moment. Sure, he replied, getting to his feet as well. They transitioned to the kitchen, where the sounds of clinking plates and the gentle hiss of the stove enveloped them. Claire immersed herself in frying eggs and toasting bread while Paul leaned against the counter, observing her quietly. She sensed his gaze upon her, and although she chose not to acknowledge it, she was aware that he was grappling with something within. At last, as she arranged the plates on the table, he began to speak. Mom, regarding last night. She glanced up, her face warm and inviting. What about it? I don't want things to become awkward between us, he said, his voice wavering. I mean, they already sort of are, but I don't want to complicate things further. Claire took a seat opposite him, her hands neatly folded on the table. Paul, she said things are only strange if we allow them to be. What we discussed last night, your emotions, they're neither wrong nor bad. It's simply complicated. He nodded slowly, patting at his eggs with his fork. Complex. They dined in quietude for a brief spell, the unease between them rising and falling like the tide. Cla yearned to utter words of comfort, yet she recognized the significance of allowing him the room to reflect. At last, Paul shattered the stillness. Do you ever sense that you're insufficient, as if, regardless of your efforts, it will never suffice? Cla felt a deep pang in her chest at his words. It was a constant struggle, she confessed, particularly since your father departed. I sensed the weight of expectation to embody both roles for you, a mother and a father, all in one. Yet, despite my relentless efforts, it always seemed insufficient. He gazed at her, his face revealing a blend of astonishment and comprehension. Truly, you always appeared to have everything under control. She offered a slight smile, shaking her head. Believe me, Paul, the first didn't. I still don't, but that's the essence of life. You don't need to have everything mapped out. Perseverance is key. He nodded once more, his body language easing a bit. That seems reasonable. They completed their breakfast in a comfortable quiet, the earlier tension gradually fading away by the time they had cleared the table. Cla sensed a flicker of hopeful anticipation, though there was still much to navigate. She could perceive the early signs of a deeper connection emerging between them, rooted in sincerity and empathy. The remainder of the day unfolded in a serene manner. Paul withdrew to his room for some time while Cla seized the moment to tackle household tasks as she meticulously folded laundry in the living room. Her thoughts drifted back to their earlier conversation and its implications for their relationship as Paul stepped out of his room later that afternoon. A sense of calm surrounded him. He settled onto the couch next to her, casually picking up a stray sock and folding it with care. "Thanks for being there for me, Mom," he said, his tone genuine. Claire gazed at him, her heart brimming with pride and affection. "Always, Paul, regardless of the circumstances." After what seemed like an eternity, she finally caught a glimpse of a true smile on his face, a small, meaningful indication that they were on the right path. As daylight faded into evening, they chose to watch a movie together, an activity that had been absent from their lives for months. This familiar ritual offered a sense of comfort and normally a gentle reminder that even amid uncertainty they could still discover moments of connection and happiness. As the credits began to roll, a wave of tranquility washed over Claire, a feeling she realized had been absent for quite some time. Her eyes drifted to Paul, who had succumbed to sleep on the couch next to her, his head comfortably nestled against the cushions. Deep down, she understood that their journey was just beginning, with many more obstacles waiting in the wings. For the moment, she found solace in being present for him, providing the love and encouragement he required to navigate his path. As she switched off the television and covered him with a blanket, a fresh sense of purpose washed over her. While she may not possess all the solutions, she held something far more significant: the unwavering resolve to support her son, come what may. In that moment, as the house embraced a serene stillness, Claire understood that she wasn't merely guiding Paul on his journey, she was also discovering her own path.